Good morning to everyone. RDBMS సబ్జెక్ట్లో బిఫోర్ క్లాస్లో ఏంటి ఇంట్రడక్షన్ గురించి డిస్కస్ చేశాము. ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి ఇవాళ సబ్జెక్ట్ వచ్చేసి ఇంట్రడక్షన్ తర్వాత ఉన్న టాపిక్ ఫైల్ బేస్డ్ సిస్టమ్ అండ్ డేటాబేస్ అప్రోచ్, దాని గురించి డిస్కస్ చేస్తాము. ఫైల్ బేస్డ్ సిస్టమ్ అనేది దేనికి అంటే డేటాబేస్ని మనం క్రియేట్ చేయాలి అని అనుకున్నప్పుడు ఆ డేటాబేస్ని ఏ ఫార్మేట్లో క్రియేట్ చేయాలి అంటే ఫస్ట్ దే ఆర్ యూజింగ్ ద ఫైల్ బేస్డ్ సిస్టమ్ టు డిజైనింగ్ ద వెబ్ పేజ్, చరణ్ ఫైల్ బేస్డ్ సిస్టంలో డేటాని మనం స్టోర్ చేస్తాము. దిస్ ద స్టార్టింగ్ డేటాబేస్ క్రియేషన్. వాట్ do you mean that the files are known as the data will be stored in the file format and it will be maintaining the data in the files and it performing the number of functionalities, whereas it will be the management for any user, the basic data management for user. It helps the users to maintaining or managing of the data, and it should be consistent. The transactions are done by file based system and a consistency property. Nothing but the consistency property is nothing but the clearly the correct data transmission అనేది జరుగుద్ది, and it should be the illegal or potential hazardous operations occur on the data, and the file based system by carefully coordinate with the others and accessing the data on the file on that database, and uniformly structured and stored and easily access the data in the database. These are all our functions are performed on the file based system, and advantages of file based system is it will be simpler and it will be based on not complicated. It is simpler and it is inexpensive and easy to access, and it is the cheap or low cost to create the file based system. And the system used by smaller organization, only single user or single partner business will be performed on the, or small businesses data is stored on the file based system, and all it is the advantage and sometimes it is the disadvantage. Why? Because only it stores the small amount of information or small amount of data, whereas when the organization are large, at that time it is not useful to store the data or create the database. And the disadvantages, it is the limited smaller size, it cannot store large amount of data. This is the major disadvantage of the file based system, and relatively uncomplicated, but this means it cannot support the complicated queries. It does not support the risk or does not perform the complicated queries, and it will be redundant data in the file-based system is the major disadvantage. The files performing the redundant data. What do you mean that? One file will be stored in multiple places and one file is stored on multiple locations. That is a major disadvantage of the file-based system, and it is the disadvantage. Why? Because number of persons are accepting the data, or when the user want to accept the data is stored in multiple locations. That's why it does not easily accessed or store access the data correctly. That's why it is the major disadvantage. And database approach is developed. ఇక్కడ database when it performing a file-based system, it will perform number of disadvantages. That's why it will be introduced the database approach. The database approach is better than the file-based system. That's why they are introducing the database approach. Database approach. The database approach is better than the file-based system. The database approach will be used for to store the data in the database. What do you mean that? ఇక్కడ డేటాబేస్ అప్రోచ్లో ఏం చేస్తాము అంటే డేటాని ఫైల్లో కాకుండా ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ ఫైల్స్ దే ఆర్ క్రియేట్ ఇన్ ద to overcome the disadvantages of file process system or file based approach. They are a newly required that must be effective known as database approach. దీంట్లో ఉన్న డ్రాబ్యాక్స్ని ఓవర్కమ్ చేస్తూ మనం డేటాబేస్ని క్రియేట్ చేయాలి అన్నప్పుడు దే ఆర్ follows the database approach. Is shared a collection of related data. The database is a shared collection of logical related data, and it is designed to meet the information needs of an organization. ఇక్కడ ఆర్గనైజేషన్ యొక్క నీడ్స్ని బేస్ చేసుకొని దాంట్లో ఉన్న డేటాని లాజికల్ రిలేటెడ్ డేటాని మనము క్రియేట్ చేయాలి అని అనుకున్నప్పుడు వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ ద డేటాబేస్ అప్రోచ్. ఈ డేటాబేస్ అప్రోచ్ ద్వారా ఏమవుతుంది అంటే బెటర్ డేటాబేస్ని మనం డెవలప్ చేయొచ్చు, బెటర్ డేటాబేస్ని మనం క్రియేట్ చేయొచ్చు. అండ్ హియర్ వీ హ్యావ్ ద డయాగ్రామ్ ఆఫ్ ద యూనివర్సిటీ డేటాబేస్ and each and every student of its own college. They have the university database contain the different students details of different logical related data. That is it is the diagrammatical representation. It creates the metadata. The data will be logically related, and it is the with the help of the programs they can creating the database. That is nothing but that here we are observed that the end user or person or the employee who wanted to accept the data in the database, ఈ ఫిగర్ని డేటాబేస్ అనే ఫిగర్ అంటాము. దీని ద్వారా ఐడెంటిఫికేషన్ ఏంటి అంటే ఇట్ విల్ బి క్రియేటెడ్ ద డేటాబేస్ అండ్ ఎండ్ యూజర్స్ giving the request to the with the help of the program to accepting the data which is existed in the RDBMS or database. Internally, the designed language with the help of the programming language, they are using the programs to accept, and internally DBMS software will be worked and operating system is also used to accepting the data in the database. The DBMS is the software. It is used to create the database and perform the operations on the database. Here The data in database approach, the data will be created logically. The logically related data will be created, and logical related data will be stored in the database in the format of tables. They are the here we using the three components to create the database, whereas the those are all are called as in the building blocks of database. They are the columns, rows, and tables. For example, we are considering a table or considering of the database of a student. Here we have the three columns and three rows. Each and every column have its own name, and each and every row have its own data. What do you mean that? In the table format, the columns are considered called as in the fields in the DBMS software or RDBMS subject. The individual item of data that we wish to store, which you wanted to store, what type of data you want to store. At that time we are giving the heading or field name to the particular column. It is nothing but the individual or and the individual items of that particular data of the column. And for example, here we are taking the student table. Here we have the columns as school number, name, and city. These three are the column headings, field headings. We are also called as in the field headings, and they are also similar to the columns of the Excel sheet, like as A, B, C. Here we are giving the name to the particular column. It is called as in the field. Whereas rows, the rows are called as in the records. That is nothing but the each record have its own data of a column, respective column. What do you mean that? The columns are few columns as you want. When we want to create a column, automatically the data will be stored in that column. And when we are take the one record of the particular column, it will be have the values of the particular respected columns. That is the here we have the rows, number of rows, and each and every row contain the different columns values. And table, what do you mean the table? That is the logical group of columns is called as in the table. The columns are individually different, but they are logically related to one to another. That's why the logical group of columns, for example, may have table stores the details of customers' names. Not only student table, we are also create customer table or the supplier table. When we create the customer table, it have the values of fields, customer ID, customer name, and customer city. Whereas student roll number, student name, student city. Whereas the supplier number, supplier name, supplier city. Whereas product name, product price, product క్వాంటిటీ అనేవి మనం ఫీల్డ్ నేమ్స్ ఇస్తాం. అంటే ఏ డేటాబేస్ని మనం క్రియేట్ చేయాలి అంటే ఆ డేటాబేస్ లాజికల్ రిలేటెడ్గా ఉండాలి. లాజికల్ రిలేటెడ్గా ఉన్న కాలమ్స్ని ఇస్తాము, దాంట్లో వాల్యూస్ని స్టోర్ చేస్తాము. అలా స్టోర్ చేసినప్పుడు ఇట్ విల్ బి ట్రీటెడ్ యాజ్ అన్ ద డేటాబేస్. The data in database approach, the data stored in the table format, and each and every table have its own data, and they are internally related to one to another. Is the database approach. Important topic of the file-based system. They when we performing the mistakes or errors in the file-based system, to overcome that, they are introducing the database approach. It is better than the file-based system. That's why they are introducing the building blocks of database. This is the explanation of database approach.